Now, welcome to my presentation on real estate. Look, this was a presentation that I've adapted from a presentation for a Probus group recently in Brisbane. Now, I have taken out a few slides and I'll hopefully go through everything I went through that day and then maybe a bit more depending on what comes out of it. So, look, a bit about me. I moved from South Australia to Brisbane in 2014. I was in the oil and gas industry at that stage. Oil price dropped 75% the day I landed, so needless to say, about 18 months, 2 years, I was out of that industry, and certainly I was looking for a change, a bit of a fresh start. Jumped into real estate, wanted to have a bit more control of my own destiny. I had some rough times with a few bosses towards the end, so I wanted something where I was a bit more, my own boss, where the harder you work, the more you get out of it, sort of thing. So I had a bit of a slow start in Brisbane. I didn't know a lot of people. Wasn't going to get friends and family sending me sales anytime soon, but within my first 12 months, I did have about 3 clients come to me and choose me to sell their property, which we achieved a great price, which then allowed me to prove that A, I was a hard worker, B, we achieved great prices, and C, I was easy to deal with. So look, after getting from there, it started to grow and grow and grow. Got to a point where we're selling somewhere between 20 to 30 properties a year, just depending on what's going on at the time. I'd like to build my business to a sustainable business, selling around 50 properties a year, which is quite a nice number. Working on quality over quantity. So, look, I put a heavy focus on effective and efficient marketing, and also negotiation and communication with my clients. So we'll get stuck into this presentation. Now I have removed a few slides at the start, so we'll get into it. So why do people sell their property? Look, they have a change in life situation, change in family dynamics. So maybe they've had another child is born, someone dies, possibly their home is too big for them or too small because of these reasons. Maybe they've got a job change, maybe they've have to move city or even across the other side of the city and they don't want to do the commute anymore. So they might choose to sell their home because of that. And also accessibility. For instance, if someone's got bad knees, they may not want to have stairs in their property anymore. Or if they need to go to a wheelchair or a wheelie walker, they may want to have a single level house. So there's a lot of reasons people sell their property. What are some of the factors that people consider when selling their property? Look, there's a number of factors. Generally, they're concerned about the price, what price it's going to sell for. They're concerned about where they're going to move to. Once they've sold, where are they actually going? But then the main thing they're concerned about is the price, obviously. Now, what's your objective as a seller? What would you consider a successful sale? And in 6 weeks' time, what would you like to have happened in your sales process? These are the questions you've got to ask yourself as you're getting ready to sell. Because a lot of people don't really know what their objective is. Oh, we want to sell, we want to get the highest price, but what's the overall goal of the campaign? It's to sell as high as you can, as fast as you can, with the least amount of stress. And that's where a real estate agent can come in and hopefully give you the right advice. A lot of agents do give advice to people that can be quite wrong. They'll tell an owner their property's worth $1 million when it's really only worth 800,000 just to get them on the market, try and get them coming to market earlier so they can earn themselves a commission check and get paid for it. So who actually controls the price of a property? Is it the buyer? Is it the agent? Is it the seller? Look, all three control it in certain ways. The buyer, they can choose to pay what the seller wants or pay more, or they can offer less. The seller, they can control the price by refusing to sell the property for the price the buyer's offered. They can put a price on it that might be a bit high. They can put a price on it that might be a bit low, or they can price it right. And the agent, the agent has control in the negotiation and in their appraisal price. So if the agent appraises it too high, then likelihood it's going to be too high. If the agent appraises it too low, look, it'll probably get a lot of interest, but you might miss a lot of the buyers that are willing to pay for it. And also, if the agent isn't willing to negotiate or isn't willing to work for you as a seller, then chances are you just might not get the price you're looking for. So a bad agent can cost you money. Also, make sure you're not hiring the cheapest agent. What actually controls the price? The 3 Ps, I like to call them. The presentation of the property, so make sure it's really shiny, make sure it's nice and clean, make sure it's looking at its best. You really want to get people in those doors and make them fall in love with it emotionally. The promotion of the property, you want to make sure that the most number of buyers can actually see the property. By doing that, that's called marketing. Make sure the photos are good, make sure any videos, 3D footprint and things like that, make sure they're all up to scratch. And make sure it's getting the wider region. So have sometimes you might target certain buyers with a certain property. A low set villa, you might be targeting older people, but at the same time, you don't want to limit it to older people only, because younger people do like villas as well. And also the price. The price is something that if you price it wrong, you can certainly miss the market, either too low or too high. So the three P's that you want to make sure you're nailing. If you get 2 out of 3 of these right, you generally can change the third one, but a few of them, like presentation and promotion, you don't want to get wrong at the start. And unfortunately, a lot of people get those two wrong at the start. Price is something you can get wrong at the start and get away with it. However, if you get it right at the start, you're certainly going to sell for more earlier on. So what are some of the factors that people consider when they're buying a property? Have a think about when you bought a property, what you were thinking. Generally, you look at what type of property you want. Do you want a house? Do you want acreage? Do you want a unit? Do you want a villa, a townhouse? What sort of type? And what sort of price? What sort of budget are you working with? Are you working with 500,000, 700,000, $1 million? Then you tend to filter out a location. Sometimes people will skip the price and go looking for a location and then focus on price. Whereas most of the time you might go, well, I can't afford a $500,000 property in an area where houses are selling for $1 million. So you might want to then have a look at location where you can buy a property. Work around one suburb, but then focus on the next 2 or 3 suburbs around it, either out or in, and just see what you can get for your money in those areas. And then most buyers are also concerned about value. Okay, I can get a 3-bed, 1-bathroom house here, or a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house over here. Which one do I see more value in at a set price? They're not going to generally overpay for something they don't see value in. I found this the other day. Now, I thought this was a pretty good graph, although it's a bit, shall we say, scratchy. It produces what I sort of want. So as you can see here, I'm not sure. As you can see here, we've got market value, price 15% above, and price 15% below. Now, if you price a property 15% below the market value, you're going to be swamped by 90% of the buyers that are in the market in that area, because they're going, this is a good bargain. We're going to get a good deal. It's going to be a quick sale. So you're going to have a busy, busy open home. We see agents bragging about 140 groups through the open home and things like that. It's probably, the fact is they've put it in the lower percentage here, and you're going to get way too many people looking at it. And a lot of people's budgets may not go as high as you really want to be in that market value. Some agents and owners will choose to price it too high and probably only be seen by 10% of the buyers. And out of those 10%, you're probably only going to get one of those lucky buyers that just thinks, you know what, I'll pay the price. I want it for the location, or they just haven't done their research. So sometimes you'll get a buyer that'll pay for it, but more often than not, it probably won't sell. So you really want to price your property around market value, which will get you about 60% of the buyers. Some that think you priced it about right, but they might offer a bit less, some that might offer more, and some that might offer exactly what you've sort of priced it. Now, this can also be a no price strategy. So you might put it in the no priced area in the background and move a property around there. So what's the selling time frame? Now, I've just broken this down quite quickly. Very rough presentation, don't get me wrong. I haven't put a lot of time and effort into the graphics on this. So firstly, you decide you need to move. One of these life changes has happened. You go, okay, we've got to sell. This is the year, this is the month, whatever it is. You work out where you're moving to, work out a timeline, work out a sales strategy. Then you might get a pre-sale building and pest, or you might leave that for the buyers afterwards. You get your photos, videos, floor plan, 3D tour done, all up front. Then you're on the market. But when should you engage an agent? Look, honestly, it doesn't matter when you engage an agent, as long as you do it quite early on. You want to have those discussions with, okay, what are we going to sell for? What are we going to get out of it? And then where are we moving to? Can we afford to move there? Or, is there something we need to rethink? So the earlier you can engage an agent to have a chat about your options and what their thought on a sales strategy is, usually is the better. I've had clients contact me 6 months in advance and just say, hey, how's the market? And I'll be like, it's good or it's bad, or, if you can, hold off. If you can't, this is where we're at, sort of thing. So look, the earlier you can engage an agent, the better. Some sellers will leave it to the last minute and say, hey, Brad, we're ready to go to market. Come around and let's get it on. And to be honest, it makes for a little bit of a, you can still do it, but at the same time, it would be better to have discussions earlier about where we're going. Now, there's a couple of strategies when it comes to selling. There's private treaty and auction. However, in the private treaty, there's off-market and on-market. So we'll go through what off-market and on-market means. Off-market relies on you telling certain buyers about the property. So it might be buyers in your database, so someone who's inquired on a similar property before. It might be buyers that you've met at open homes, people that have basically been entered into your system. A lot of that requires on direct marketing, word of mouth, or emails, SMS sort of thing. So you're sending it directly to a certain buyer. So there's generally minimal urgency. You can create a bit of urgency, in selling a property off market by saying to the buyers, hey, look, if the seller doesn't get the value they want, they're going to take it to market in X number of days or X weeks or whatever it is. So you can create a bit of urgency, but at the same time, it's minimal urgency because the buyer's like, oh, they're probably not motivated to sell. They just want to see what the buyers are going to offer them, sort of thing. So the urgency is not always there. Now, when you go to market, when you're on the market, you can have a broad marketing campaign. So you can market it on all the major portals, so your realestate.com, Domain, Homely, Real Estate View, all those, and try and find buyers from all different avenues. You can put it on social media and really spread the word that this property is for sale. So you're going to bring in buyers and new buyers. The off market, you're only going to have the buyers that agent has met or spoken to, whereas on the market, you're going to meet new buyers week on week on week. And so it might be that they've been looking in another suburb, realize they can't afford what they want, and they want to move to the next suburb to find something. So you might just get lucky and find one of those buyers as well. There's many avenues, as I've just explained. You can go through still using the database, still using all the major portals, the social media, everything like that. So you're basically throwing a huge net out there to try and capture the right buyer for your property. Because let's be honest, not everyone's going to like the property as much as you do. Some people will find some things, that don't suit them. Other people will go, this is perfect. This will fit our, huge dog or something, whatever it is. And you can create with this broad marketing, you can create a busy open home, and then you get a bit of a fear of missing out from the buyers. So they sit there walking around going, wow, there's so many people here. We're going to have to put in a good offer. Otherwise, we're going to miss out on this one. There might not be another one that suits us quite this nicely. So that's the difference between on market and off market. The different strategies between private treaty and auction. So we'll go through these quickly. Now, private treaty is on the left here. As you can see here, once your offer is accepted, so that's a for sale, offers over strategy, something like that. There's a 5-day cooling off period built into the contract. Then there's a 14-day building and pest clause, or 7 days, depending on what the buyer does. But lately, we've been seeing a lot more 14 days. So you've got to wait to see what the buyer wants to do after that. Then you might have a bank valuation, maybe any due diligence clause or any other terms in there. Then there might be a finance clause where the bank's got to come in and go, yes, we are happy to lend you the money for the property, making sure that they're covered in case you foreclose on the property. And then you're unconditional, and then you've got to wait till settlement. So there's a lot of hurdles there that can make you quite nervous when you're actually going on the market. Whereas auction, I love auction. I think it's underutilized a bit. And unfortunately in Queensland, there is a few red flags about auction that you need to be careful of. And we'll go through those later. However, with auction day comes along, bang, hammer goes down, the offer's accepted right then and there, and you just wait till settlement. So there's no real unknowns, versus the private treaty. You've got 21 days, and then you might have 9 days to move out. Auction, you know that it's 30 days and you'll be moving out. So there's no unknowns in there. You can move straight away. So what is the role of a real estate agent? Look, the role of a real estate agent is to do the marketing of your property, negotiate on your behalf, provide great communication, great service, and to act in the best interest of the seller. Now, they're there to make a buyer feel comfortable, but they're not working for the buyer. So what I mean by that is, you might think that sounds kind of funny, but you don't want to have a buyer feel anxious about buying a property. You don't want to have them come up to you at an open home and feel like you don't want to talk to them, or feel like you just don't like them because they're just another buyer. So at the end of the day, you've got to make sure they're part of the deal because they want to buy the property, the seller wants to sell it. So you've got to make them feel comfortable that they're not buying a lemon. Make them feel comfortable that you're looking after them a little bit. So look, a lot of agents will not treat buyers as well as others, but you'll get that feeling if you go to a few open homes. What is not the role of a real estate agent? Now, this relates more to sales, okay? So the real estate agent's role is not to value a property. We're there to give a guide on price, so where we think we should market it. However, we're not there to value it. A bank valuer will do that. They'll take measurements. They'll compare it to other properties. We can give you an appraisal based on other properties, but at the same time, we're not valuers. So a valuation is not legal for us to do, but an appraisal is. Similar, but different. So our goal is to give you a price guide as to where we think you should market the property right then and there. We're not there to give financial advice. we can give opinions and financial opinions, but we can't give financial advice. So always seek a professional, someone who's qualified. At the end of the day, a real estate agent can spend a week doing a short course to become a real estate agent. So the qualifications as a real estate agent are actually quite low. The entry level is quite low. Now, people generally that are good agents will be in the industry for more than 2 years, but you do get a lot of agents that start in the first year and drop out in the first year. So as far as financial advice, we are not qualified to give that. We give opinions on what we think is going on, and it's usually at the coalface and what we've heard from other sources. Now, it's not our job to give a buyer a good deal. Some agents will give a buyer a good deal. For instance, a developer might say, hey, do me, make sure I can buy this property and I'll get you to sell the 2 properties afterwards once we subdivide it or whatever. It's not our job. If we're being hired by the seller to sell the property at a premium, we're not being paid to give the buyer a good deal. So that's another red flag, and we'll go over that later. So here are some red flags when choosing an agent. So this is choose an agent to work on your behalf as a seller. So an appraisal price. So there's a saying in real estate where the biggest liar gets the listing. So if you have 3 or 4 agents come in and you have 3 of them say your property's worth 1.1 million and the 4th one says it's worth 1.4 million, you feel pretty good. Your chest comes up and you go, wow, I'm going to be rich, But there should be a red flag there that the agent's actually buying the listing. They're lying to you to give you an amazing amount of hope. I've had it done to me, and to be honest, you do feel really good. But then if you look at the actual facts and you go, well, that house only sold for that, so why is mine worth so much more? The trouble is we are quite emotionally attached to our houses. So if an agent tells us they can get us more, look, sometimes we do fall for it because we believe that, they're a professional, they know what they're doing. So just be careful, make sure you get a few opinions, and remember, they don't control the price. They do have a say in where we market it or where it's marketed, but they can't control it. If you go too high, chances are, it's not going to sell. If you go too low, you're probably going to undersell it. So you want to be really careful on that one. Now, a lot of agents will call up, oh, look, I've got a buyer. Every agent has a buyer. Any agent that's been working in your area has a buyer. Sometimes an outside agent will have a buyer specifically for your property because the buyer has driven past it, walked past it, or they're looking at a specific size of land or development opportunity. So there is that chance. However, just be cautious. Make sure you do your research there because in some cases they may be working for the buyer, not the seller. So always be cautious there. Now, number of listings versus number of sales. This one's an interesting one, which when the market's a bit slower, we see this change quite dramatically. So you might see an agent with 10 sales for the year, but they've got 10 properties for sale at one time. So if they're selling 10 in 12 months, but they've got 10 for sale right now, how many are they actually selling? If you're breaking up over a 12-month period, you might have an agent that sells 50 properties a year and they've got 20 for sale at the one time, and another agent that sells 100 properties per year and they've got 20 for sale at one time. So it's a bit of a red flag that the agent that has 50 sales for 12 months and the agent that has 100 sales for 12 months have the same quantity for sale at that one time. So always make sure that their percentage is probably closer to a third rather than half or thereabouts. But yeah, always compare agents on that behalf. Suburb records. I love this one. Often you'll see advertising in your area saying, oh, we got a suburb record. Now, the thing with the suburb record is a suburb record for a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom with a chimney on 423 square meters. Look, sometimes these suburb records are just a sale that's been found to be a little bit different. It may have 4 fireplaces instead of 1. There's some, it's got a garden shed in the backyard. There's some sort of variation in it that allows it to be called a suburb record. So don't always take these suburb records as, amazing. Sometimes there's a lot of hidden little facts in there. Suburb record for a renovator or a knockdown, but realistically, it's a subdivision site or a development site. So they haven't gone into the full truth of why it's a suburb record. They're just calling it a suburb record. Sometimes they'll go in and say, oh, suburb record for a high set or suburb record for a low set, but they don't explain that it's on 3,000 square meters of land or something like that. So look, suburb records are great. Have enough listings, you'll probably have enough suburb records. I think every agent probably claimed one at one stage, which is fine. It's a bit of marketing, a bit of ego promotion and stuff like that. So keep an eye on those. Auction strategy. So we went over the auction strategy before. Now, in most states, you give a price guide for an auction. Now, in Melbourne, Sydney, think Adelaide, you'll see it sell generally 10% above that price guide. Now, in Queensland, legally, they can't give a price guide for an auction. So a lot of agents will use this. If an owner wants 1.5 million, but the agent thinks it's only worth 1 million, an agent will say, yeah, no worries, we'll get you 1.5 million, we'll take it to auction. And they'll take it to auction, and the first week on the market, they come back to the owner and say, look, I'm sorry, we've had interest around the $1 million mark. And the owner's going, oh, what happened to our 1.5? And the agent says, look, I must have got it wrong. All the buyers are saying 1 million. So instantly the seller's like, oh no, we're at $1 million, we've priced it wrong. Whatever we've done, it's wrong. Then come auction day, they set the reserve. Let's say, the sellers say, okay, 1.1 would be really good. If we can get 1.1, everyone's been saying 1 million. If we can get 1.1, we'd be doing well. So let's set the reserve at 1.1. They set the reserve, and you know what? The auction starts. They get some bidding. Sells at 1.2 or 1.3, and they're like, oh, agent, you did such a great job. We got 200,000 over reserve. Well, to me, that sounds like the agent wasn't protecting their bottom line. They weren't looking after them at all. They were just trying to get their price down so they could actually sell it for a great price. I've seen it before. Reserve set at 750, property sells for 950, sold for 200,000 over reserve. Where was the protection for the seller on the reserve there? So look, that's a strategy agents use to get a seller's price expectation down. Get more listings, get more marketing, and try and work 6 or 7, well, not 6 or 7, 4 or 5 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks to get that seller's price down to a point where they know they can sell it. So look, for me, I've run quite a few auctions in Queensland. Most of mine have sold at reserve or above. I've only had a couple sell under, and one was only 5,000 under. One was a little bit more, but it was a very big unknown because it had a lot of structural issues in that property. So we weren't sure where it was priced anyway. So look, I think auctions are a great process. However, there are a lot of issues in Queensland, and that's why if you look at Queensland's clearance rates, they're generally a little bit lower than elsewhere in the country at the same time. So generally 5 to 10% lower, and it's mainly because agents are tending to use it wrong in the first place. Now, reviews and testimonials. This is another red flag. If you ever look at some agents' reviews and testimonials, you'll see that a lot of them are written like someone that works in real estate would write them. And it might be some agents are saying, here, I'll write the testimonial, send it to you, you just click yes, and it publishes. And it's written about such and such in their team, or they're using terminology that's very real estate related, like high sets, low sets. Oh, we got a record price for a low set house. Most sellers wouldn't write about that. They're not there to brag about their record price of their low set. They'll be like, oh, we got a great price, or yeah, we achieved a great outcome. There's often spelling errors in real testimonials, whereas fake testimonials, they're usually pretty perfectly written and grammatically correct. And you'll find the same key phrases used all the time. Some agents will even write their own fake testimonials so they can have a claim to being the number one agent in a certain suburb. That'll be the title of their testimonial, and they'll send that out to the client saying, hey, we've written a testimonial. Can you click yes, that was me once it comes in? So again, testimonials, suburb records, there's a lot of fact and fiction screwed up in there. So now, red flags when buying. So this one's for people when buying. There's sort of red flags to keep an eye out for. We can't give you the exact advice because every agent that you're buying from is going to be different. However, we can give you a few things that we've seen that are really just a little bit dodgy. Because in real estate, at the end of the day, there's a lot of words used, but a lot of facts get thrown out the window sometimes. So one thing I've seen recently is the rental estimate on a property. We'll see selling agents get their property managers to inflate the rental price, thereby selling it to an investor at an inflated rental price. I saw a property recently where it had a rental appraisal of $750 a week, when realistically it was probably around $550 to $600 per week. So any buyer that was looking at that is thinking, oh, great, $750 a week, that'll cover the mortgage. As soon as they get it, it's on the market for rent, and they end up only getting $550 or $600 a week. They're going to be pretty disappointed. So for me, our office tends to be quite conservative, but at the same time, we've got a conservative and optimistic level that we sort of give out. I'd prefer that to be accurate than not accurate. So, I don't want people coming back to me and saying, hey, you screwed me over. This is my life you're ruining. We're having to fork out extra money to pay for this property. Some agents won't put anything in writing. They won't send any text messages or send any emails. So that comes up later, but you'll see there's a lot of verbals. And to be honest, sometimes phone calls are better, but at the same time, as a buyer, sometimes you might want to request things in writing. Can you put that in writing just so I'm covered in case you're lying to me? Some agents may still put it in writing even though they're lying, but we don't know. EOI versus contract. Look, an expression of interest technically is an offer. However, you really want to make sure you're making an offer on a contract. If you want the seller to accept it, put it on contract. If you're just, putting a few rods out there and seeing if you can jag a bargain. EOI is okay, but at the end of the day, if someone wants to accept it, then until it's on a contract, that another offer can come up and gazump you basically. So always, if you're making an offer and you want it to be accepted, make it on a contract, okay? Multiple offers. There's a lot of agents that will say, hey, we've had multiple offers north of 950 on a property, and then a week later call all the buyers back and say, oh, so all those offers fell over on finance. We've now got interest at around 800,000 or whatever it is. So just be warned about agents saying, oh, we've got multiple offers or we've got offers coming in at this price. Sometimes they're going to be lying. Sometimes they won't. However, again, comes back to anything in writing. Make sure they say we've got multiple offers in writing. And then, you've got to use your judgment and say, do they actually have multiple offers? Are they telling the truth or are they not? That's up to you. You're going to have to figure that out, unfortunately. I can't help you in that regard. That still comes down to you just chatting to the selling agent, basically. Again, auction strategy. So this is the reverse of what we talked about before. The reverse when selling was to get the sellers down. The auction strategy for a buyer, the one you want to look out for is you go, oh, there's a property on the market. It seems to be priced at 500,000. However, I think it should sell for about 700 or thereabouts, or 650 at least. So why is it in the 500? And then you call the agent and go, oh, look, I see it's going to auction. What sort of price are they looking at? Oh, look, we can't talk price because it's auction. What sort of money are you thinking? Oh, I'm thinking 500,000. Oh, look, great. You're in the box seat to own it. Come along, get to the open house, get to the auction. Yeah, it's going to be yours. You're definitely going to be there. Look, again, no price guide. The seller doesn't know what it's going to sell for. But if the owner paid 500,000 for it 2 years ago and spent 100,000 in renovations, there's a fair chance it's not going to sell for 500,000 unless they're in really dire straits. So a lot of these agents are doing this to just try and get people with bidding paddles to the auction, which for me is a bit unfair on the person that has that $500,000 budget looking at $700,000 houses. If I find out their budget's 200,000 off the pace, I'll say, can you stretch any more? Can you stretch any more? I don't know if the property's going to sell for 700, 600. But at the same time, if they go, nah, 500 is the top of my budget, and I know the seller's not going to accept 500 because they're not desperate to sell or anything like that, I'll be like, look, I'll be honest, you might be better looking at another property. Like, have you seen this one or something like that? So I won't use a price to give back to them because it's illegal, but I might try and guide them to other properties that have sold and said, oh, did you see this one sold for this? Did you see this one sold for that? So we can provide recent sales when going to auction. Dutch auction or fake offers. Again, comes back to the multiple offer situation. Be careful of fake offers. They may not exist. Dutch auction is where an agent will say, oh, someone else has offered 20 grand more than you. Legally, they can't give a price. They can say, look, you're not the front runner. Have you got any more left in the tank? Can you sharpen your pencil? Whatever terminology they can use, but they shouldn't be putting numbers in your head. And this can work as a seller as well. So if sellers are still listening to this, I had a client and the agent said, oh, look, the seller's not willing to sell it for that. But if you go an extra 10 grand, it's probably yours. Now that buyer might have gone an extra 20 or 30 grand, but by the agent saying, have you got an extra 10 grand in you? They've instantly put that in the buyer's head. And the buyer's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can probably do 10 grand. I was thinking 20 grand. We got a good deal. So as an agent, you've got to be really careful with numbers. Most of the time you shouldn't be using too many numbers. You should just be using verbals and saying, hey, is this your best and final? Have you got any more? Look, we're not going to sell it for this. What more can you go? Can you sweeten your deal? Anything like that. So be careful when they start using numbers because it could be a Dutch auction and it might not even be a real offer. So yeah, be warned of that one. So in conclusion, don't believe everything you're told, buying or selling. Make sure you do your own due diligence. So make sure you do your own research on properties around your property if you're selling and properties around the one that you're buying. If you're buying, speak to another agent in the area. They can probably help you and have a bit of a discussion about where the price is, or have a chat to other buyers or other neighbours and say, oh, has there been any issues and things like that. Often I've had a buyer say, oh, that one never got flooded. The agent told me it never got flooded, but at the end of the day, it did get flooded, and there's history of that, and it's all been renovated. But the agent said it hasn't been flooded. Again, speak to the neighbours about that. Check the sold properties nearby to compare to yours. So don't always just assume that the agent knows everything. I've heard of clients being on the market for 3 months with one agent, then the next agent comes in and tells them a little bit lower, and a third agent tells them even lower again. But they go with the agent that gives them the higher hope, buying the listing, and they end up selling for what the third agent told them in the first place. So again, do your own research, speak to a few people, get an idea. Remember, you're emotionally attached to your property as a seller, so you're probably going to think it's worth more than what it is. Not always, but fairly often that's the case. As a buyer, look, again, compare sold properties to where you're buying. Not always going to work because the market is always changing, but it gives you a good idea of where you might be. And don't believe the price unless it's justified. So if you're selling, make sure you've got the appraisals, make sure that the numbers are right. Look, in a $2 million price range, being wrong by 5% is $100,000. So it's quite a big variance there. It's quite hard to probably appraise properties at that sort of budget. Whereas being wrong 5% at $1 million, it's only $50,000, which is still a lot of money, but at the same time, you're not talking hundreds or $200,000. So, don't believe the price unless it's justified. If you're getting 2 or 3 appraisals, there will be someone out there to buy the listing and they'll tell you how good they are and all these suburb records. But look at what they're selling, what they're listing, what they're putting on the market, and how many are actually selling with them. More often than not, the ones that are buying the listings are probably only selling 50% of their listings. So keep an eye on that. Make sure you're tracking agents, in advance of actually choosing one. So I think in my career, I've probably only had maybe 6 properties not sell, which is pretty low percentage overall. However, there'll be a lot of agents that are upwards of 30% that haven't sold, or even 50%, because they're ultimately embellishing the price there. So don't believe anything unless it's justified. That comes the end of my presentation. So look, I'm open to anyone asking me anything. I've actually got a link on my website where you can ask me anything anonymously. However, if you do want to ask me anything, you can also shoot me a text, give me a call, message me online. The main reason why you might not do it anonymously is because I can't answer you directly, and I'll have to generally do a post on my social media or do an article on my website. Whereas if you ask me directly, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Honestly, I live this every day. I'm quite passionate about real estate and helping people. So yeah, don't be embarrassed. We hear all sorts of questions. So hopefully we've got the right answer for you. In the meantime, have a good day. Have a good day and have a good weekend.